We are live.
Cool.
All right, here we go. Well, welcome everybody to this week's episode or seminar of the Parents Corner. Today, I've got a special guest, great friend of mine and co-founder of Vici, Marco Scarano.
Yes, sir.
Great to have you on here. And
glad to be here.
This week's topic is going to be just the recruiting journey and breaking down that full process of how to optimize and make the most of your chance to play college athletics. So super excited to talk about that.
It's a big one. I mean, especially just because, if you go about it certain ways, it just enhances your ability to get recruited and go to good schools. So I think it's something big to talk about. And I mean, if you're good at it, there's different ways you can be good at it. You enhance your chances of like going to a better school. So it's definitely good for parents and kids to learn about, especially on a session like this, for sure.
No, yeah. So super excited. We both have a little bit different journeys. So it'll be cool to hear both perspectives and kind of see how each of us have different ways that we went about it, but also how we'd answer. A lot of it is to start is just understanding yourself. And so we kind of, though we have a lot of overlap, which is why we ended up at the same school for various reasons, but there's different kind of motivations and aspirations, all of that together. So to kick it off, I think I want to kind of break down what we're gonna go through today. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is understanding yourself. This is kind of the base, the foundation that you need to build off of to be able to maximize your journey. If you don't know where you are right now, what your situation is, and kind of everything about yourself, then it's really hard to kind of start to develop the plan to help you get to where you want to go. You want to know where you are right now and where you want to go, because then you can make the best plan to get there. The second thing we're going to talk about is surrounding yourself with the right people to help you achieve what you want to achieve. I think I'm a true believer that one of the biggest reasons and influences on people is the people that they surround themselves. And that's a huge impact on who you become. So making sure that you surround yourself with the right people, the right resources is definitely going to be a huge. Third is just talking about how to make a game plan to just get where you want to go. You gotta be intentional with your recruitment and with your development. So we're excited to talk about that. And then the next step we're going to talk about is really how to showcase your skills. And this is where you just ball out. And so we're going to kind of tell you about the places and ways that you can really showcase your skills. And following that is really when you get to the final and most exciting part, is kind of where you get noticed and you can really connect with coaches. So excited to walk through all of that. And Marco, you want to kind of kick it off to start with just the first part?
Yeah, I can for sure. I want to give a little bit of background about where I'm from, my journey a little bit. And then I'll get into, the first part of like where I like realized where I was in the recruiting journey, and like what different indicators, got me there. So I started off at a public school in Connecticut. I'm from Central Connecticut, a town called Berlin, and I ended up starting my freshman, sophomore year there. Did pretty good. Played varsity my sophomore year and ended up going all state. So the foundation was there. I definitely wanted to play college football, but it wasn't really it was always my dream, but it wasn't something I was always striving for day to day. It wasn't a daily process where I was committed to it. I had an agenda every day I had to hit these certain things every day. And if I didn't, then I know I failed that day on my journey to, go into college for football. So I think the major thing that switched for me was my transition to private school. After my sophomore year, I got recruited to go to a boarding school in Connecticut, Avon Old Farms, and they kind of shaped what we call your process and your agenda and just being organized in your recruiting journey. And that's the most important thing, just holding yourself accountable. And that's what I realized. So at that point, when I transitioned, I repeated my sophomore year for football purposes, and just obviously academics was a big thing for me. Now that I'm at Princeton, I've always wanted to go to academic school. So that helped me a lot too, just develop in the classroom. But just going through those things my sophomore year, like really understanding what I needed to do from a recruiting standpoint and development standpoint, what the college coaches were looking for was massive, and that's what the coaches really helped me with. So that's like a big thing. What I want to emphasize today is you really need to know where you are when you start. If you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, you need to understand the recruiting timeline, when dead periods are, when coaches can talk to you, and obviously just like yourself. So if you're not the best at certain things, you need to figure that out right now, because coaches are going to figure it out during the drills and camps. So evaluating yourself and understanding where you are as a player and in the recruiting journey is huge. And I think when I transitioned my sophomore year, I really understood like what drills are going to be happening at the camps, and doing those drills in practice, and like the coaches that were, my high school coaches telling me like what I could get better at in those drills really helped me just like solidify my confidence at camps. And also just understanding like the recruiting journey, like the coaches couldn't reach out and still can't reach out till junior year. So just like preparing my foundation of just skills until junior year, not getting worried about just like coaches reaching out and like all the kind of Twitter stuff until then. And then once that point happens, just taking it from there. But from the first point is just, understanding where you are in the journey. If you're a sophomore, you're a freshman, just working on your development, where you need to be for camps, and just from a eye test perspective, you need to be, bigger, faster, stronger. And that's the biggest thing. And then once junior year hit, you need to understand where you are in the recruiting journey. If you're a little late and your junior year already happened, but you still want to get recruited, there's definitely a possibility. But you just got to speed it up. And that's kind of where you got to recognize where you are in the recruiting journey.
I think there's a couple things that you touched on right there that are important. One, everybody's recruiting journey looks different. Like you can't really compare yourself to others, and that's something that a lot of people do that is really harmful, so to say. Yeah. For your own recruitment. And then the other thing is just being intentional and with who you surround yourself with and how you go about the process. And I think one of the things that you did that helped you a lot that you mentioned is surrounding yourself with other people that want to push themselves, that want to be better, but also with resources and people that can help you get to where you want to go. So you made that transition to a school that had a lot of those resources available to you, and obviously that helped you.
Yeah.
And you ended up
honestly, if you're around people that have the same aspirations for you, and like they're waking up early, 5 a.m. working out, and we're doing like 3 practices, like 2 lifts and a practice a day, like honestly, you're going to get that much better working out with people that are like-minded. And then on top of that, what you just said with like the whole like comparing yourself to people, that was a big thing I had to learn from the jump. Like I was always on Twitter. I had eventually like limit myself on my Twitter time, because I was always looking at like coaches and what they're posting, and like reaching out to coaches. And then you eventually like follow these coaches, and they're like liking people's offers and stuff like that. And you get to a point where like every time you go on Twitter, you're watching someone get like the offer you've been wanting to get your whole life, and it's really like draining at that point, where like you can like really get caught up in like, oh, like this is what I've been like, this is my dream, and other people are like getting it. I might be behind. But what you have to realize is that like someone else might jump the gun and get the offer first, or like get a offer first. But in the long run, like you might just be progressing later, and you might end up better off in your situation. So it's like, it's all about what you need and what you think is best for you. And it's never a comparison. Like that's what I really harp to kids, is to never like just sit on and just like get like down on yourself just by looking at Twitter, just to emphasize that.
Yeah. And like you said, just being the best version and having the best situation for yourself. And this touches on the first thing we'll talk about, which is really understanding yourself. One of the biggest things that you need to do is understand, like, why do you play the game? So when you understand yourself, there's a couple of big questions that I like to have answered for myself, but also for others that I try to help through the process. Is one, motivation. Like, why do you play the game? Are you just playing the game because your dad wants you to play the game and is trying to live his dream through you? Or do you actually enjoy the game and want to play the game because you have a good time? You love the relationships with it. You love the grind. Why do you play the game? Second, I like to know kind of, where do you want to go with this? Like, do you want to play college football? Do you see yourself maybe trying to go pro eventually? Do you want, or is it just something that you like to do for fun, or is it something you want to utilize to be able to get into a great school? Because that is one of the most underrated. That's the cheat code to get into the schools that you want to get into. Like
Exactly.
athletics is the biggest cheat code to getting into the best schools in the world. Um, you can go play at a D3 school, which has a crazy low acceptance rate. And you will get in because of football or whatever sport you want to play. So thinking about why you play football and what you want, what your aspirations are for your athletic journey are the first two questions. And then the final questions, like Marco mentioned, is just understand your strengths and weaknesses, because the coaches are going to find out what your strengths and weaknesses are. That's their whole goal when they're evaluating you. So what you need to do is evaluate yourself, understanding what are you good at, highlighting that to others, but also that you need to take the steps to develop what you're not good at and making those less of weaknesses. But at the same time, you want to also like develop the things you're good at, because that could be something you become great at. And it's something that can help you stand out. So it's understanding yourself there, but also working with others to have them help you understand that as well. Because it's a lot of times you have a lot of bias. You look at it from your own perspective and you can't really recognize the flaws that you have, or sometimes you're really hard on yourself and you don't recognize some of the strengths that you have. And so having that outside perspective is huge. And those three questions are really the foundation of understanding your current situation, which is the foundation that you want to build off of. I don't know if Marco, you have anything else you want to add to that?
I definitely, especially with that last point, it kind of moves on to the second topic. Like if you have to figure out your strengths and weaknesses, that's where having a committed community is really good. Like I always advise people to either have a mentor, have someone that can watch the film, like that you go work out on a random day, like a couple times a week, and you're filming yourself doing certain drills that are going to be in camp, and you have someone that's been through the process, someone that knows exactly what the coaches are looking for, that can look at that film and tell you what you need to do and what you need to fix or what you're good at. And honestly, that like them telling you what you do really good at builds confidence as well. Like also like knowing like, I'm really good at this. Let me try to showcase that at camps. And like, that's what the coaches will really see flashes of. And like, that's really good. Like that'll make them look at you more. But also just like developing the weaknesses, like Nick said. And I think an outside perspective and, having that community that really cares about your development in your process and what you need to get to a college that you really want to go to is essential.
Yeah. And I think one of the hardest things for people in athletics, non-athletes, just people in general in this world, one of the hardest things one of the biggest things they struggle with is asking for help. Yeah. And so one of the biggest things that holds athletes back in high school actually are the things off the field. And so what you can do is surround yourself with people that will help you minimize those issues. You should never have things that are non-sports related, that are controllable, be the things that hold you back. Yeah. And so what we recommend, some of the most basic things you can do is talking to your college counselor, talking to your academic advisor, getting help from teachers with the classes that you're struggling with, talking to your coach, telling him about your ambitions, because and the important thing is having this be your second step. Mm-hmm. All these steps that we go through today are listed in the order that we listed them in because they build off of one another. In order for you to have people help you get to where you want to go, you need to understand where you want to go and where you are right now. What do you need help with? Where and where do you want to improve? Because then they can help you achieve what you want to achieve. So if your college advisor knows you want to go to an Ivy League school to play football there, they know that you need to have certain expectations in the classroom in certain classes to be able to be eligible to even try to do that. Mm-hmm. And so they can help you get to where you want to go there.
One of my mentors when I was in high school did the saying. It was like, if you want to hit the target, you got to know like where you want to shoot. Obviously, it's like you can't be aiming, you can't not know where you're aiming to hit the target. And I think just like knowing exactly what your path needs to be to get there, and like having a written out plan. It's actually like writing it out, like not just having it in your head and like having a dream, but like actually like understanding like what's your where you are right now, where you want to be, what's the straight line to get there, and what it entails is the biggest thing. And then asking for help. And like Nick said, it's sequential. So just making sure we do that before like having a committed community, and like obviously like you want to know where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that touches right into like what you mentioned, what you said about writing it out and having it planned out is the third step. And that's where a lot of people have no idea what it actually takes. You think you're putting in enough effort. You think you're doing what it requires to get to where you want to go, but then when you actually put it together and you see where you want to be and where you are right now, and then you see what it actually takes to get there, a lot of people are shocked by how much it takes. I know for me, like in high school, one of the things that I definitely could have done better and that I didn't do as well as I should have was lift. I didn't start lifting that much until my senior year, and I was 200 pounds. I was not very strong. I happened to be pretty bouncy or just like a raw athlete, but I could have been so much better than what I was. And so I started to actually invest into training the way I should have been training the whole time. And I put on 20 pounds of muscle just like that and was so much better. And my ceiling could have been so much higher if I had taken those steps and thought through these things and been intentional from an earlier standpoint.
I think mine was like we talk about this all the time, but mine was like kind of the opposite. Like, I didn't have the build or like the straight athleticism from the jump, like sophomore year when I started getting recruited, or like beginning of junior year. But I was always very intentional with like having my trainers and like making sure like every lift I did, I was like the form was right and I was like doing good weight. And like, I was always in the gym. You have to be like super committed, especially if you're not at a point. Cause like, just to be completely blunt, if you're not at a point like where Nick was, where you're just like super athletic and you have the build that like, they can develop, then you have to do something else really well, which is like, for me was, I was 6 foot, like probably like 190 pounds going into my junior year. And it's like, that's like obviously like a solid build and they can work with that for college, but it's not something that jumps off the screen. You have to do something else. So for me, it was, just living in the weight room, making sure my numbers were massive and just like good for, my body weight and my height. And then just also like just being really good at drills and just like being very technical with my things and showing that like, I was an IQ player, like I could be in the right position at the right times, be a leader, and those type of things. So like, obviously there's two different archetypes for those situations, but like just understanding what kind of person you are is essential. So, where you could like kind of maximize. So if you're someone more like me, if you don't have like the build, then you have to live in the weight room and be like super committed to that. And be fast, be strong in those senses.
And I think the thing also there is that even if you do have the build and you found success, think about how much higher your ceiling could be, how much better you could be if you were intentional. Because you're like, oh, I'm already good. Like I'm already finding these things. But they're like, yeah, but you're not even doing the work. Like imagine how good you could be if you put in the work. And so it's about becoming the best version of yourself. And that goes back to where you don't compare yourself to others. This is where, how can you be the best you? And focus on that and put your head down and work. So that's kind of like something that a lot of athletes struggle with. And one of the big themes for today is being the best version of yourself. Don't worry about anybody else. Be the best you. So I think that one of the big things we touched on was lifting, but there's a lot of other ways that you can develop yourself. And I know that it's part of what we're doing over here at Vici is working with the mental side of the game. And I think it's something that's really overlooked. A lot of athletics hasn't even looked into in the past. And people think that it's just something that you're born with. But actually, what we found recently is that more and more being able to master the mental side of being a great athlete is actually a skill that you can train. And Marco, I know you had a meeting recently with one of the sports psychologists that we have at Princeton. I know that pretty much all of the best athletes that we have at Princeton routinely meet with them. What was that like for you, and how did that help you?
I think the biggest thing for me, like meeting with him has been so awesome so far. It's been a couple weeks now, but just like understanding for me, like from a sports psychology perspective, has been, being consistent. And I think that's been really difficult at least for me, like everybody has ups and downs in their life. You know, you have energy, you don't have energy, being motivated, not being motivated on certain days. And I think the biggest thing he's helped me with has been just being consistent, like doing certain things throughout your day that you can like purposely do to set yourself up in the right mindset before practice. So every day you're going to be the same. And obviously that's not going to work every single time, but there's different tactics like meditation, breathing, different mental exercises that you can get in the right mind space before practice. And that's always been like something I've struggled with. And I think just being consistent, just every day, just, you know, coming out with the same attitude, same motivation was good for like the sports psychology type of things.
Yeah, and I think another thing that is part of this is a lot of your ability to succeed depends on your ability to first believe that you can succeed. And part of the mental side is visualizing your success. And so a lot of athletes in high school, in college, at all levels really struggle with confidence issues. And they don't see themselves succeeding. And when you don't believe you can succeed, you don't see yourself winning, odds are you're going to manifest that. You're going to turn that into a reality. So the first step is to start to convince yourself that you can succeed. And to do that, you need to, like we touched on before in the previous steps, this builds on the previous steps. Be intentional with how you are going to succeed. If you have a plan and you've crafted out exactly how you are going to become this great athlete and you are going to make these plays on game day, you know exactly what you're going to do when something comes up, you know exactly how you're going to react because you've practiced it, you prepared for this, then you can go with confidence in and make those plays. So it's the knowing you put in the work and then not comparing, because then you know you're just looking at yourself.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing, especially from like the mentorship perspective, like what we do. Like I think the IQ has been super helpful for me when I was being mentored in high school. Like just like as a player, I was like the player I was just because I knew the entire defense, and like just knowing how defenses work, knowing your position, knowing everybody else's position on the field makes you like 10 times better of a player. And it shows in camps when you're talking to coaches, they're going to ask you questions about like, what do you think about this things? I know like certain quarterbacks, when you're getting recruited, they'll sit you down in a room and ask you about like what your favorite concept is and why it is your favorite concept. So like there's different mental IQ tests that go into the recruiting process that you can show off how good of a play you are from the IQ standpoint. And that'll show on film as well. If you're a smart player, you'll be in the right spots and you'll make plays. Like that's the biggest way that you can get interceptions, you know, like jumping routes. Like you just know what concepts are coming from offenses and different defenses. So I think just like being a really savvy IQ player is something that's really overlooked. And that's what we try to help kids with, is just understanding their role. And like, it's very simple stuff, just like making an effort to like understand your position, not just what the coaches ask you to do in season. You know, like you have this gap or like this is your drop, and like you don't really go any deeper than that. But already understanding that and then just going off, like going further into that is what good players do. And like learning how to watch film. That's all mental things that we can do that we teach kids in the mentorship program that really enhance their game and help them like play better during their like actual season.
Yeah, and so we touched on being able to develop yourself physically by training consistently. We talked about being able to develop your mind, but I think one of the other really important parts is your ability to recover. You have 2 hours a day ish that you're training, pushing your body, straining your body, but it's 22 other hours of the day that you can be developing and helping your body move forward. And that's through active recovery. And so figuring out what, or active or passive, honestly, through just recovery in general. And that there's a lot of things that go into that, whether it be doing things like stretching or mobility, just moving your body and letting your muscles get some kind of recovery. There's also things like nutrition and what do you fuel your body with, and making sure that you have enough food or not too much food, and having the right kinds of food to make sure that you can fully recover and take advantage of these gains. Like if you don't get enough food in your body and you are the hardest worker, you're lifting all the time, no matter how hard you work, you can only get a percentage of what you could get if you were fueling your body properly. And that's honestly something that I've struggled with. I've always been a person that struggled with gaining weight. But the things that have helped me is being intentional and making sure to take the time to plan out how you're going to get enough food. Because if you just let life take you, you're not going to get to where you want to be. You're going to be like everybody else, if not worse. But if you help or are intentional with what you do, then you have a plan and you can know what steps you need to take to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I think Christian McCaffrey harped on that. I think it was in one of his Twitter reels or something like that. But when he was getting recruited, he was running track for one of the coaches, and I think it might have been Stanford when he was getting recruited by Stanford. They came to one of his track practices, and he was running 400s. And that day, he didn't have the best meal, and usually he was hitting certain times, and he's been training crazy, and he had a certain time in his head that he wanted to hit in front of these coaches. And that one day where he didn't have the right food, it totally killed him. He did 400 and he was just gassed, and he totally just died and threw up. And he said that's why since that point on, he's been crazy about just being intentional with his nutrition and just what he eats, just because it really affects your speed, it really affects your endurance, on a day-to-day basis. What you eat that day and how much water you drink that day and the day before, obviously, really play into how fast you're going to be for that day, how much stamina you have from an endurance standpoint you're going to have for that day. So it's really important just to kind of be consistent with that stuff and be intentional.
Yeah. And so to recap what we've kind of touched on so far, the first step is understanding yourself, which is understanding where you are and where you want to go. The second step is surrounding yourself with people who can help you get to where you want to go from where you are, that have the expertise and are able to support you. And something we didn't even mention in that is not just the adults or people like coaches, teachers, parents, whatever, but also the athletes that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with guys who love to compete and love to push themselves, you are going to be more like them and you're going to make way more gains. So knowing who you are, knowing where you want to go, surrounding yourself with the right people. Third, being intentional with developing yourself, creating a game plan, and then actually fourth is actually executing and following through. So having some kind of consistency and accountability that you actually follow through, because you can make all the great plans that you want, but if you're not someone that's going to show up to lift every day consistently, what's the point in having a great trainer or having this huge plan if you're not even going to show up? So showing up day by day, putting in the hours, putting in the days, months, years it takes to develop is the next step. And honestly, it's so important and it's so hard. And that's what makes athletes a lot of times so good at a lot of other things, because it's a life skill that translates to everything. The best athletes are the ones that are the most consistent, the most disciplined, and doing the things that are mundane, repetitive, and almost boring a lot of times, but doing them over and over and doing them well. So that's kind of what we've touched on so far. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
Especially for that last step, I would just say it's all about creating habits. Everything you do is just showing up on time isn't usually even enough. You got to show up early, and that's got to be a habit for you. You got to build that. You got to show up 5-10 minutes early, get an extra stretch in before a lift. If you have a trainer, show up early, get a little warm up in at practice. Make sure you're doing extra work after, and just building those habits will make you that much of a better player. And just make sure, obviously, just executing, like Nick said, is the biggest thing. Just actually working through your plan and not deviating from that, and just actually staying with it, and not getting down on yourself when things do go up or down. Obviously, things are going to go your way, things might not go your way, but just staying with the plan, and it'll all work out in the end. Just trusting the process, as people say, and just staying consistent no matter what happens it'll work out in the best way for you.
Yeah. So we've talked about how to really help you become the best football player, because the best way to get recruited is to be the best player. And so we've talked about how to become the best player that you can be. Now let's talk about the best places to kind of showcase your skills. Yeah. Obviously, number one, best way to do it is game day in the fall for football specifically. Coaches are going to take game film over pretty much any other kind of thing that you have. Your bench and whatever numbers could be not great, but if you are dominating against great competition, that's all they care about. That will overrule anything else. They're we can.
Twitter buy, and they see a link that is insane. and you're making plays, like they don't need to see anything else. Like obviously, like if your grades are good from that point on, like you're gonna be chilling for anything from that point on. So yeah, just game film, like you need to just execute on that point and just like really be locked in for those, because that's where it all comes down.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and I think a lot of kids are playing 77 nowadays,
Yeah.
and I think that it is helpful for developing skills. But I think personally, and I've heard from coaches, I know Coach Therace, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, isn't the hugest fan of 77s. And I think a lot of head coaches or just coaches in general aren't the biggest fans, just because it just doesn't translate very well to what actual football games are like.
Yep.
So I think that it can help you become a better receiver, better quarterback, all these things. Like you're practicing making reads, you're practicing running great routes, catching the ball. But I think that the best way is obviously in games, at camps where you actually work with the coaches themselves. And while 77s are good for development, they're not really going to impact your recruitment that much.
A lot of people ask me that, is like, should I be posting 77? Like, sure, you could definitely post on Twitter. That's something you could do, but it like on like 1 and 2 is film and camps. Like just like those two things, like being in person is definitely more beneficial for their recruiting journey than 77. Like they'll possibly watch it if you're already talking to them and they've seen your film and they kind of like you, but they're not gonna, like ever like throw an offer at somebody or like really look at them just because 77 film was like above par. So yeah.
And I think if they do look at it, it's mainly just to see how you move.
Yeah.
This is the same reason that they look like you can get looked at for your basketball highlights. Like coaches are looking for great athletes. And this is why they love seeing people that play multiple sports, because they know, and dominating in multiple sports, because they know that you're a great athlete and you can move well, you're explosive, you're smart. These are attributes that they're looking for. Like they can develop some of the other skills, and you want to try to develop your other skills. But if you show that you are a great athlete, then they can work with that.
For sure. I agree.
I think one thing that I would also add into this section is we've talked about things you should do. Marco, what would you say are the things that you shouldn't do, that you should avoid in this section? And I know for me, like one thing that I know coaches hate is someone who makes like a scene. I don't know how to best describe it, but like someone that has to always have all the attention, that is doing the most, as a lot of people say, is loudmouth, and a problem, especially to his own team. But they want someone that will work hard and is disciplined and can just grind and is focused on the game rather than how he looks. And I think that's something that is definitely a lot of athletes nowadays are doing more than ever, just because social media says you need to have this fancy dance and you need to be talking all this trash and doing all these things that really don't affect the game at all. And what you need to do is focus on the game and focus on helping your team win football games and win competitions, whatever it is.
And don't get it mixed up. Like the college coaches they're gonna call your high school coaches, they're gonna call the cafeteria lady at your school, they're gonna call everybody to make sure that you're a good person before they offer you. So like just being a good person off the field, like everything you do needs to be professional. And that's the kind of biggest thing for me. Like if you ask me one thing that I think kids mess up a lot is just being professional on social media. Their email handle is like very unprofessional. Like they don't have something with their name in it. Their bio is like not the way that it should be. They're reposting things that like have nothing to do with anything football related, and like they're very inappropriate. Like doing things like that is something that could get you dropped from a recruiting board really quick. So that's I definitely do not like just being professional on your Instagram, any social media platform. Like they'll check everything. So like not even your Twitter. So just like being intentional with that stuff and keeping everything off a site. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing from my perspective.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like keep your social media clean. Coach, that will get you off a coach's list so quick. And just be a good guy outside of I saw something recently about this kid in Texas who lost his offer to Texas because he got in trouble with the school for this bullying thing.
Yeah.
Like I think it had something to do with putting like peanuts in like a kid's locker who was allergic to peanuts. And it cost him his potentially chance to play college football.
Yeah.
And he was like a very highly rated like recruit.
Mm-hmm.
Just dumb stuff like that.
Yeah, 5 other kids on the board that could do similar things that you can do. So like if they think you're not a good person, they're going to send to go with the next person. So yeah, like that has to be a must. Like you have to be, like showcasing that you're a good person. You can be a leader. You're disciplined. You can be coachable. All those different things have to be a must. They can't even be up for discussion.
Yeah, and the biggest things like showing, you have no off the field issues. You give 110% every single play. You are coachable and you're tough. These are things that coaches, whether you realize it or not, are looking for. A lot of the intangibles, because they want to find great players now, but they also want to find people that they know can develop to be really great in college. That means like, can you get better? Mm-hmm. How good are you at getting better at what you want to do? And it's really hard to have people that are not coachable and who don't give a lot of effort and aren't disciplined. It's hard to make them into good football players, even if they're really good right now at high school. But shoot, everyone's good when you get to college. So you can't be just going off of, oh, I was good in high school. Cool. Everybody that's going to play college football is good. Can you get better? And if you can't handle those things, you're not going to get better.
The schedule is all different. Like your schedule is going to get 10 times more difficult. There's going to be a million techniques thrown at you in the first day that you're back at camp, your freshman year. And just being able to be a good person and be disciplined throughout it all and like not have those issues off the field is going to like allow you to be like reach your potential in college. Like that's what they really look for. So that's the things they really harp on. Like if you can be coachable like in a camp or like they know like on the phone with you, like you're very like chill person, like you're not going to have any off-field issues. Like that's what they look for. They want someone they can just teach, they can coach, they know you have the tangibles on the field. So like just making sure that's not a problem is definitely big. So like making sure like those are essentials.
Yeah. And so the final thing we're going to talk about today is the recruiting and just connecting with coaches and really getting noticed and earning that last little step to the scholarship. What was it like, and what were the things that helped you think, get to that final step, get that first offer?
I think, like we said before, just being intentional, like every day, like having a certain amount of DMs I would send out and to what coaches, like having a list of like what colleges I think I could go to and why, like would I want to go there, and just like getting all their information, all their DM handles and everything like that, having a mock text and just like sending them out a couple every day. And just having like trying to like reach out to as many as possible, because even if one answers back, that's one step closer you are to possibly getting an offer. I think just being consistent in that and just like really, really being organized with like what coaches you're reaching out to, where you want to go, because sometimes you can get really unorganized, and if you're not doing it in the best way possible, you're really hurting your chances of like a coach seeing you and like really liking your film. So yeah, I would say being organized and just being intentional with your DMs, reach out to coaches, what camps you're going to. Like you don't want to go to any camps for the most part. Like I would recommend if you're later in the recruiting process and you're getting a little bit of traction, only go to camps that one, you're talking to a coach. If you've been actively talking to a coach, you can definitely go to that camp, or you want to go to that college and you really want to show yourself, like go to that camp. But if you have no intention of going to a school, like you're not talking to a coach and you think it's like out of your league in a way, there's no point of you going and spending your parents' money to go to a camp. And that's the biggest thing I usually say. Like, obviously it's good. It's a good workout that you're paying for, but like you want to be more intentional with your time. Like you only have a couple of weeks in the summer. So like go to the camps, the 5 to 7 camps that like I recommend going to. Like go to those camps that you are talking to those coaches and you're interested in going to, and don't waste your time. So yeah, those are the things I was
totally agree. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that athletes do when they're going to camps. So like I'm a huge fan of camps. Camps is what got me my offer. Going to camps, so coaches can work with you in person and realize the athlete you are, but also your coachability and who you are as a person, because that matters to them too. Because if you're close with another kid, they're going to go with the kid that they like better as a person that they've worked with in person 9 out of 10 times, probably higher than that. But I think one of the biggest mistakes that athletes do when they're going to camps is going to way too many camps. Because think about it. If you're going to camp and you have 3 days in a row, 3 camps, there is no way you're going to be physically able to perform at your best, like all 3 camps. You just won't, especially the last one.
Yeah.
Like the goal is for you to showcase to a coach what you look like at your best. And if you're going to a camp and you're only at 65, 70%, what are you doing? You're wasting money. You're not showing the best you. This isn't the you that you really are. You're not showcasing that to a coach. So don't do that. Don't make sure you have space between camps so you can recover and be at 100% or close to it when you perform at the camps. The other thing is, like Marco said, make sure that the coaches know who you are before the camp. Make sure you've developed some kind of contact relationship with you and that coach. Coaches have a small list of players at camps that they're actually looking at. It is very, very rare that they offer a kid that they didn't even know about at the camp, coming into the camp. So make sure you have connected with that coach. You've reached out, you've talked to him, let him know that you're coming, and then go to the camp. Because if you don't have that, it's not really like any point.
Some kids will go to the camp and then not talk to the coach after. Like after you're done with the camp, you need to go. You need to get out of your bubble. You need to go talk to the coach, shake his hand, introduce yourself. If you haven't talked to him before, maybe you reached out an email and he answered. But like just going out, reaching, like having him match a face to a name is the biggest thing. So like make sure like after the camp you are going and talking to the coaches that you want to go to. Like a lot of kids get shy and they'll be like, all right, the camp's over. Like let me leave now. Like no, like you have to go. Like wait your turn. Go up to coaches, introduce yourself, and then take it from there. Because that's like you're wasting your time if you don't do that.
Yeah. Give them a firm handshake and look them in the eyes and speak with confidence. They don't want anybody that's some softy that doesn't want to even look them in the eyes. Yeah. Like you have to be confident. And it may feel uncomfortable at first, but you'll get used to it and introduce yourself. Say it with confidence, say it with your chest, who you are, and get to know them, put a name to a face. So that's definitely one way. Camps is one of the biggest ways. Like Marco talked about, Twitter is your best friend when it comes to recruiting. You need to have a Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter yet, go make a Twitter. Like you got to have one. And make sure you have the information that they want to see in your bio. You got to have obviously your full name, your real name, so they can actually look you up. It's kind of mind-boggling how many people don't even have their actual name on their Twitter. Yeah, so when a coach wants to look up a player, they can't find them because they don't have their name in there. Mm-hmm. So make sure you have your real full name so a coach can find you. Have your basic size information, height, weight. And a lot of guys can
1 inch is fine.
A little bit, but don't say if you're 6 foot that you're 6'4". Like they're gonna find out. There's no point in lying like that. And then basic information like your GPA. Obviously, you gotta have your position, your school. It's really great to have in your Twitter somewhere where information where they can connect with your coach, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to want to talk to your coach. So making it easy for them to find your coach and stuff like that, having your awards and stuff like that in your bio is definitely super helpful. And then have pinned to the top of your highlights, to the top of your whatever feed, your highlights. You want to make it super easy for them so that they don't have to go anywhere. The easier it is, the better. And in your highlights, have your best plays at the front. Don't save good ones for later. You want to catch the coaches. Let's be honest, they're probably not watching more than 30 seconds from almost all kids. So those first 30 seconds need to be phenomenal. You need to have your best.
A lot of guys I know, if they're an offensive lineman, they'll have all pass plays for the first minute, and then they'll go to the run plays, and there would be some really good run plays, but the coach will never watch it. And it's same way the running back, or if you're a two-sided player, you'll have your running back highlights, but then you'll make some crazy plays as at linebacker on defense, and you won't have them for a minute in because you're showing all your offensive plays first. You want to put regardless of what you play, have your best plays up top. So that's one thing I've seen kids mess up on.
Yeah, and honestly, you just want to show plays where you're athletic, and this is weird, but not even that crazy. If you have if you're a football player and you have a crazy dunk or a crazy athletic play from other sports, put that in there too. Like a coach would be more than happy to see you have like some nice dunk or something in your football highlights, as weird as that may seem, because they just want great athletes at the end of the day. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah, I would recommend that on top of like highlights and stuff like that, pinning that, like make sure you're posting. Like, don't overpost, obviously, but like every couple weeks on top of your workouts, like get a little. If you're going heavy one day, or like say a dunk, like post on your Twitter, like have them, if they look up your name, they could run through like on your media, you dunking, you like squatting like your max weight, like for 2 reps, like something really heavy that they know you're like an athlete. So like honestly. Yeah. I see a lot of guys, it's just their highlights and like a couple like football pictures or whatever, and they have nothing else, like none of their workouts. Like the coaches want to see that you're consistently working out and that you got the work ethic, and that like you can do out like other things that are athletic outside of just like the football field. So like making sure we're posting sometimes, not over posting obviously, but like every couple weeks, like just throwing something out there during your workouts.
Yeah, and for the guys that maybe don't have the greatest film yet, like, or they were injured during the season, like, you can post workouts from during the offseason. You can post videos of you doing drills and doing those things. That is a great other way to show coaches how you move and who you are as a player, even though it's not game film, but at least you have something. Like if you don't have game film, all right, what's next? Where else can I show that I'm a great athlete, that I'm someone worth recruiting? And you got to give them a chance. If you don't have anything out there, then what are they going to work off of? So having those kind of highlights, because that's one of the most common questions, like, what if I don't have good game film yet? Well, then find some kind of other film that showcases how great you are as a player and why they should take you.
And then after you have those things, like follow as many coaches around the country as you can. Like you have a list of all, like you can find it somehow. Like you can look up the football website and like find the coaches, find the Twitters.
We'll put it in the description. I have a list of all the football coaches and their emails. We will put it in the description. It's free for you guys to take.
Yeah.
Just
follow it and get as many follow backs. If they follow you back, you reach out on DM, just ask them how they're like, hey, thanks for the follow. How are you doing? Like, I would love to, hop on the phone, like send them your highlights. If you have highlights, just GPA, stuff like that, mock text, and just like make sure you're reaching out to as many people as possible.
Yeah. And have your transcript ready. Almost
for sure.
Yeah. Every coach is going to ask for your transcript. So just have that ready to go so you can show. And that means you got to have your grades ready to go. There's no, this semester I'm not doing so well. I'm just trying to get my grades up right now. No, that shouldn't be a problem. Have those grades already ready to go. Be ready. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So I think to wrap it up, let's touch on the biggest no-nos of reaching out to coaches and just getting recruited in general. What would you say are like some of the biggest no-nos that you have from your experience or what coaches have said?
I would say just like language. Like if you're saying like sup coach, like, and then you're like, hey, I like versus like saying like being very professional. Like same with your social media. Like if you're posting like stuff that you shouldn't be posting, it's the same as like a DM. You should not be saying like slang to a coach, like saying sup coach, like and using different words that are not professional. Like if you're gonna email like a hi, like someone for an interview, like it should be the same type of wording and it should be the same effort, no spelling errors, stuff like that. Like you need to be very intentional with what you're doing, and not just like making this like a lackadaisical like thing. You need to just like be very intentional, be very, very professional, because that's going to make them think that you are someone that's professional and like you don't really cares about their recruiting journey and that wants to be recruited to their team. So just using the right tab is big.
Yeah, and I think another thing that a lot of athletes, there's a lot of or more athletes do than you'd expect is having your parents just run everything and reaching out to coaches. Coaches, at least from my experience, coaches hate when it's the parents. They want the athlete to reach out to them. They want to talk to the athlete, not the parents. They want to work with you, and they want to know that you want to talk to them, not the parents want to talk to them. And so that's one of the biggest turnoffs, so to say, for coaches is having parents talk to them rather than the athlete, because now they're like, oh, first of all, this is a parent that might be overbearing. Second of all, it shows that you don't have enough of the willpower to go do it yourself. They want somebody that wants it. They want someone that's going to put in the work and that wants to reach out to the coaches themselves. And if you're not willing to do that, then I don't know if they want you. So make sure that you're doing it yourself and not just having your parents just do all the work for you and connecting with coaches with you.
Gotcha.
But all right, quick overview of what we talked about. So an overview of the process is that you start with understanding yourself. You start with understanding who you are, what you want to get. Surround yourself with people that will help you get to where you want to go. Then work alongside those people to develop a plan and figure out what it actually takes to get there. After you've done that, you've got to actually just follow through and put in the work. At the end of the day, hard work, it requires a lot of hard work. It's going to require a lot of time, energy, and effort to develop yourself to becoming the player that you want to become. After that is when you showcase your skills. You go to camps, but most importantly, you ball out during the season. Finally, the final step is when you get to reach out to coaches. All of these build off of one another, and they should be done in that order. If you're skipping steps, it will show. If you're not doing well in a certain step, it might not be that step. That's the problem, is that you're not doing a previous step. So if you're not getting the offers that you want to get, it's probably because you're not playing well. And if you're not playing well, it's probably because you're not developing well. And that could be because you're not putting in the consistent effort, or it could be you don't have a great plan. And if you don't have a great plan, maybe it's because you haven't surrounded yourself with the great people that you need to get to where you want to go. And that might be just because you don't know what you even want to do. So all of these build on one another, and make sure you follow through with all these steps. And we'll have more videos in the coming weeks breaking this down. But if you want someone that's going to help you walk through this journey and walk you through these steps and hold you accountable and support you through it, that's what we do. Our whole mentorship program, our whole online development program is to help athletes do all of these to the best of their abilities and become the best players and become the best version of themselves that they can be. So if that's something that interests you, just check out the link that we have in the description below. And we're launching our online program in March. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to touch on, Mark.
That was it. That was perfect.
Awesome. Well, excited to keep this going, and appreciate you being on here, Marco. And if you have any more questions or thoughts, make sure you drop them in the comments, and yeah, we'll do our best to respond to them. All right, everybody.
See ya.